Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2015 disaster movie, San Andreas. More like disaster porn, because that's pretty much what this movie is. It's a disaster porn movie. But it's not even a good disaster porn movie, because all the disaster porn is stuff that you've already seen before. It's disaster porn you've already seen before in films like 2012 and a bunch of other Transformers movies. So if you're going to see it just for disaster porn, and I know I'm late in the game when it comes to this review, but if you're only going to see it in terms of you want to see some disaster porn, well, there's a lot of other better disaster movies you can watch that give you more than this movie does, which isn't very much. In fact, I really honestly think this film gave me the bare minimum, and that was just a lot of CGI carnage and explosions and buildings falling over and The Rock, and just thought, hey, that's enough. Wasn't enough for me. Because I really thought this movie was, for the most part, a pretty dull bore. Mainly because I didn't give a shit about most of the characters other than The Rock and his wife or his ex-wife. Alexandra Daddario, she may have a nice rack, but in my opinion, she can't act, so that didn't help. I'm sorry, no amount of jiggling boobs and no amount of boobage is gonna make up for her lack of acting skills, as far as I'm concerned. Ioan Gruffudd, I think it's Ioan Gruffudd. I think that's how you say it. The guy who played, Ioan Gruffudd, who played Mr. Fantastic, plays an asshole in this. Some rich, big, businessman, architect guy who's a dick. Who that's all he is. He's just a dick. And then there's a good scene where The Rock's ex-wife, estranged wife. I guess they still are husband and wife, but they're about ready to divorce. Played by Carla Gugino. I don't. Is it Gugino? I don't know how to pronounce her last name. And I like her line dialogue when she finds out that this asshole, Mr. Fantastic, Mr. Not So Fantastic, Mr. Dickhead, left her daughter alone, and while this building was collapsing. And she calls him up and she's like, "You left my daughter alone? If you're not already dead, I'm going to fucking kill you." That was like the best line of dialogue in the entire movie. That was one of the best scenes. The Rock plays this search and rescue guy. I'm sorry, not The Rock. Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, plays this search and rescue guy. This fire department helicopter rescue pilot named Ray. And in the beginning of the movie, this woman who's doing stupid shit, like looking, I guess it's supposed to be a satire of people doing stupid shit in cars. I don't, probably not. It's not a satire at all. It just shows that this woman's doing stupid shit in her car, and then she crashes. Her car flies off and gets stuck on the side of a cliff. And then here comes The Rock and his team, and The Rock saves her. And it's an okay sequence, but it's nothing to write home about. Then you're introduced to the character, the scientist character, the seismologist, played by Paul Giamatti, who plays Dr. Lawrence Hayes, who's realizing that there's some weird stuff going on, and he thinks there might be an earthquake that might be on the way. That's going to be the big one. And of course, it is. You have a scene at Hoover Dam where Hoover Dam breaks, and this Asian guy who's a friend of Paul Giamatti dies heroically, which I gotta agree with my friend Matt. It did remind me of that scene in Volcano where the guy tries to save the guy, when there's all this lava in this subway, and this guy tries to save these people, and he sacrifices himself. I thought it was a lot more effective in Volcano than it was here. It was just, fall into a CGI crack in the ground. But that's just me personally. And I gotta agree with my friend Matt too. Volcano is a much better movie than San Andreas. It sure as hell is a lot more memorable to me. It's a lot more fun to watch as well. So, and a lot of the effects of Volcano are practical or done practically. Here it's just CGI for CGI, and I don't know why they made this movie. The whole script feels like it's a script that the studio found in a file cabinet somewhere and dusted it off, and it was dated in the early 90s. This is such a dated script, right down to the really awful jingoistic ending with American flag falling, and then what do we do now? We rebuild. I'm like, that's just me personally. I'm American, but I don't need American. I don't need Americana. I don't need the American flag shoved down my throat. But that's just me personally. I just thought that was so corny at the end. We do now. We rebuild. American flag. America. Fuck yeah. So and so the big quake happens. Of course, you have the typical bullshit. Nobody believes Paul Giamatti. Turns out to be right. Big quake happens, but I guess it's like there's an aftershock. There's still aftershocks, of course, and then one that causes tsunami. And then you have a scene near the end, which should be suspenseful, but it really isn't. For the most part, I knew I could predict everything this movie was going to do. It was so cliched. It's like it didn't even try to be do anything different with the disaster genre. If I want to watch a movie with an earthquake and with this type of scenario, I'll just watch Earthquake again, the 1974 film with that had Sense Around and starring Charlton Heston. I'll go watch that again. I actually think that's a better movie than this, to be honest. Yes, the effects don't look super realistic, but neither do the effects in this movie. You can tell they're CGI, and then it just looks like the same stuff I saw in 2012. And I like 2012. I'm one of the few people that actually like the movie. And I thought 2012 upped the ante, and this movie just felt pretty tame in comparison in terms of the destruction of 2012 or Independence Day or any of these other disaster movies. Oh, San Francisco gets shook to its core and buildings fall over and all that. And there's a scene with a helicopter where they're trying to escape buildings falling. I saw that done better in 2012 with the plane, and they're flying through all the buildings that are crashing and stuff like that. And then, of course, the climax where, oh, Alexandra Daddario, oh no, she's gonna drown. And I'm like, bullshit, she's not dying. She's not gonna die. It's totally predictable. They drug it out way too long to try to make you think, oh, maybe she is. She's gone. No. The Rock's the superhero, and he brings him back to life. And I didn't really care for a lot of the supporting cast. That's another, like I said, The Rock, he was there, but he still didn't have that much to work with. I didn't hate him, but then again, I didn't love him either, because there was nothing really for him to do except to be this search and rescue guy who grabs a helicopter and tries to save a bunch of people in the middle of an earthquake. I like the scene where he knocks out this asshole guy who's trying to be a dick when he needs to get a car, when he needs to borrow a truck so he can try and go find his daughter and save her. I like that sequence. Kicks his ass. But there's Paul Giamatti, I think, does all right with he has to work with, but he just plays a cliched. Nobody believes me. The scientist that no one believes. And I did not care for, like I said, I didn't care for Alexandra Daddario, who plays Blake, Ray and Emma's daughter. She's nice to look at. She's got nice tits, but that's about it. Hugo Johnstone-Burt, who plays Ben Taylor, an English architect and Blake's love interest, I couldn't stand. If he is English, he has a really thick accent, but I don't know. To me, it just sounded fake. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't fake. That's his real British accent. Either way, it just got on my nerves after a little bit, and I did not care for the character at all, and I especially didn't care about his younger brother. So yeah, and there really wasn't that much in terms of humor. There wasn't much in terms of fun. It's not really that fun of a movie. If I am not impressed by your disaster porn CGI that I've seen in a million other movies before this, then I'm not entertained. This film left me empty. after it was over. I was just like, oh, that was something I watched. That's exactly my reaction to this movie. I'm like, oh, San Andreas. That was a movie. So that's pretty much what it was. I don't even, this isn't even that long of a review because I don't even know what else I can possibly even say about this movie. The plot is so simple that like I said, I already described it. It's just The Rock going around trying to save people and save his daughter and his wife in the middle of an earthquake. That's really all it is. There's stuff with a tsunami at the end. They showed the aftermath. It's crazy, but it's not as crazy as you've seen in any of these other disaster movies. And I don't buy the excuse. It's just a disaster movie. What were you expecting? Shakespeare? No, I wasn't expecting Shakespeare. I was expecting a movie that was actually fun to watch and actually, I don't know, had a sense of entertainment about it. This movie just felt like it was just gonna throw the disaster stuff at you and The Rock, and I thought that was enough to entertain you. And to me, that was not enough because I have a cliched script, I have uninspired direction by I think it's by Brad Peyton. It just is a very really there's nothing to his direction. There's nothing impressive about it. It's just there. There was a director, and his name was Brad Peyton, and he directed the movie. That's all I can really say when it comes to the direction of this film. It's completely forgettable. There's no shots, and there's not a single shot in this movie that's at all memorable to me or an example of great direction. Cinematography is pretty flat as well. This is the visual effects for the most part. I mean, some of them look impressive, but other ones look pretty fake. Uh, they still haven't got water down. You can't make fake water. I mean, CGI water still looks like CGI water. I know people don't want to deal with water because it's a pain in the ass to deal with on the set, but you can't replace water with CGI water. I don't buy it. The illusion is lost. But I wouldn't really have a problem with it if the sequence was actually suspenseful with the tsunami, but it wasn't because there was no suspense. I knew The Rock was gonna make it over the tsunami in the boat. I knew that was going to happen. This film never threw a curveball at me. It never surprised me, never shocked me. It just it just played by the same rules that every other disaster film has played by. It didn't do anything different. It didn't break any new ground. It was pretty much a stagnant film. It just felt like it was stuck in a rut throughout the entire running time. But that's just for me personally. It's fine if anybody else likes this movie. I'm just not a fan of this film. I have no desire to see San Andreas ever again. Was it worth a watch? Yeah, for some of the effects and for The Rock and some lines of dialogue, I guess. Wasn't anything else about the movie that was really worth watching for. I mean, I knew what the plot was. It didn't throw anything different at me. Uh, the direction isn't really that great. The cinematography isn't that great. The editing is okay. The score is completely forgettable. It sounds like every other score in any other movie lately. It's a very in one ear and out the other type score. And yeah, I've seen much better disaster movies. I'd rather watch Poseidon Adventure or Volcano or Daylight or a bunch of other movies than this. And those films have better characters. A Towering Inferno is another example. I'd rather watch those movies, especially Daylight. Yeah, there's some of the characters are annoying, but for the most part, it did have better characters than this movie does. It's definitely a lot more suspenseful as well. But anyway, yeah, I really don't know what to say about the film, except I was a rate out of 5 stars. It's another 2-star flick for me. It's another one of those like it's below average. It's not even average to me. If it was average, it would be a time waster, and I could watch it again, and I wouldn't mind adding it to my collection. But I don't have any desire to add this to my collection. I don't have any desire to watch San Andreas again. So it's not even average. It's a below average film to me because all it has is little bits and pieces with The Rock, some decent effects here and there, and one or two lines of dialogue, and that's it. That's all the film has for me personally when it comes to entertainment value. And that's not enough for me to call the film even average. So that's just me personally. I've seen a lot better disaster movies. And a lot of other disaster movies that are a lot more fun than this. And that's what was surprising to me the most, was this felt very soulless and lifeless, and it just didn't feel like it really had a heart, and it was trying to have a heart, but it felt artificial, and it just wasn't entertaining. It didn't have enough fun with itself. And I really think that's one of the big reasons why it didn't work for me. When you have a concept like this, you need to enjoy yourself. You need to have fun with the concept, not just briefly here and there. You got to have fun with it. That's what makes disaster movies good, is they're entertaining because of how much fun they have with the concept. This just took it way too seriously for the most part. It was way too melodramatic of an approach. But anyway, yeah, that's just my opinion on San Andreas. And thank you for watching my review, and I will see you guys later. See ya.